Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to the highlights of the book, Action and Reaction. This week we will be reviewing Chapter 16. It is so riveting because it's entitled Mitigated Debt. It is the first chapter in this book because all the previous cases we've learned about debt at a standstill, increased debt, all from a negative perspective.
Yes.
But finally, we really are even more so consoled, right? Because we see here a case of Adelino Correa, a man who in a previous life was a criminal. Really, he was a criminal. But now we see he's totally redeemed himself, completely changed, and embracing all of basically the consequences that he's reaped for himself. It is such a moving chapter. We really implore you, dare we say, we beg you to read this chapter because it is so heartwarming and touching for us, right?
I think you said it all, because there were a lot of cases that, yes, we still take the good out of it from the previous cases that we have studied, that we have visited. But in this case, we see that there is hope. There is a possibility to the goodness, even though we bring with us the guilt, the difficult thoughts that the feelings, anything that we may bring from our past lives for the wrongdoers that we have done. And it's positive. He's using this case that we're going to be studying. He's doing this the best that he can to become a better individual. Right. After all, despite all the difficulties from the past. So it is a positive case. It really boosts our capabilities, or gives us so much courage because he's there. He's trying.
Yes. And the case is interesting because we could extract so much. We know we only have such a small amount of time to really bring highlights. Because in this book, Adelino Correa, he has a physical ailment. He has something called eczema, which is a skin condition, and it has different levels of severity. In his case, it's on his face and other parts of his body, and it's very cracked, dry, itchy skin. It can be very uncomfortable for anyone who has to experience it. But it's interesting because oftentimes we look at physical illness, or perhaps some people look at physical illness as just something physical. But we learn in this chapter, as in many other books, that illness is not just something physical. It is something that is much more deeper within the recesses of our mind. And we learn, although we cannot share the entire case of Adelino Correa, right? But we learn that he comes back into a family where he's paying off a debt from previous. Because in this lifetime, he's a hard worker in the Spiritist Center. He's very giving. He's very caring. By all means, he's a wonderful person. But in this life, his wife abandons him. They have a child together. He also adopts 2 young African Brazilian children into his family. So he's, by all appearances, he's very caring. He's very loving. And often people might think, oh my gosh, why is this happening to this man, right?
Correct. Especially in the setting that they met Andre Luiz and Hilario, taken by Silas to study, and they say it's imperative that they study this case in the law of action and reaction, right? That they learn, they go to meet this person, Adelino Correa, at a Spiritist Center, as he's talking, as he's helping people, and they notice that everybody owes so much to him that they were amazed about it, right? And Silas asked them to start praying as that they can go ahead and get near him, because his vibration is so high.
That's
despite
so
all the difficulties that he's suffering. Imagine when we go to a place and we see someone like that, don't we find kind of wow, but no, he's there. This person, he's dedicated himself not only to himself, but to others as well, because they said that he's just kind of like putting himself aside to help others. So it's a beautiful thing that we see that these individuals as well that you mentioned, the daughter, the 2 sons, adopted sons, they're all connected to his past. If anything, the only person that is there to help him is his mother, and reincarnated, but also a great help from the Spiritist benefactor. So it's an amazing thing. Yes.
It's interesting, Leo, because the law of cause and effect, we wanted to bring this idea because oftentimes there's this misconception about the law of cause and effect. And it's not this reward and punishment, I do something wrong and I pay for it. In actuality, God's laws are educational. But what happens is that, like a child, when child has to do something that they don't want to do, it literally is almost painful for them because it's like, oh my gosh, I have. They're dragging their feet, and sometimes in life we drag our feet, so to speak. But if we just be more open to learning and embrace our problems, as Adelino does, I mean, after the fact, naturally, because he already committed the wrongs, but
Correct.
he's completely devoted to goodness. And it's interesting because you mentioned that people in the Spiritist Center where he works are so touched by his vibration. Even Andre Luiz, as you said, is touched by his vibration. Kardec talks about this very thing, and I believe it's called moral fortitude. He talks about when someone is so morally upright, they vibrate this. So when they speak, they really go to the core of our heart and really touch us. And we have experiences in our lives. You listen to someone give a talk. In or out of the Spiritist Center, you can meet anybody who really just touches your heart because they have that moral fortitude that Kardec talks about.
And it's nice that you say this because it's not only in the Spiritist Center. Obviously, we have many cases that we studied with Spiritism, but there are many other religions or people who does not follow a specific religion that they transpose this kindness, this love, because they're selfless. They don't think about themselves. They think they put others in front of them beforehand. And
mentioning selfless, there's a beautiful quote we wanted to mention. If for those of you who would like to read it, it's on page 212 and states the following, that selflessness, wherever found, is always a sublime, radiant star. All it has to do is show itself and everyone gravitates around its light. That is true. That's why many people have followed the likes of Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and in the Spiritist world we would say Divaldo Franco, Chico, Xavier, and many other great minds, because we feel moved by these people, because ultimately they sort of awaken this divine essence within us, and we too want to be better and greater than we are today, right?
Right, and it's nice that you bring this, because in this setting right here, what happens? Just to take a passage of this chapter on page 210, when Silas is approached and he's told, "My dear assistant, our Adelino is having financial problems because he helps others so much he has been neglecting his own needs." And we talk about the selflessness here, that is not just something that we do one day or a couple times or maybe 3 times in our entire life. He's been doing this over and over and over. Number one, to receive the daughter and the 2 sons now in this lifetime that they were connected to him, that helped him create a huge debt in the past. Now he's very committed to help these individuals, but because of his consistent thought about selflessness, what happens? What does Sila tells us and instruct us when he says, well, he's about to receive something? And what happens towards the end? Not that we want to give out, but I think it kind of complements this idea of being selflessness, because we will receive the teachings, the guidance from up above, definitely.
Leo, and we wanted to touch on that very briefly, because Adelino Correa, although we don't have the time, unfortunately, to tell the whole case, but we'll say a little tidbit just to sort of tease you that the very biological daughter he has in a previous life was his stepmother, that they committed a crime together. His 2 adoptive sons were farmhands in the time, in a different lifetime that he lived, that he also committed the same crime with his stepmother. And basically, he had murdered his own father for reasons that you have to go and read this chapter. But the very reason he had his eczema is directly connected to how and why he killed his father, and how beautiful the laws of God are, how God gives us opportunity after opportunity to really, I would say redeem ourselves, or perhaps because of lack of a better word, but to really fully love and repair the wrongs we have done, that he accepts a 4th child who's abandoned on his doorstep, who will be, or who was rather, the very father who he had killed. So it's beautiful because, as you mentioned, that very day or the day prior to him receiving his son, who's not biologically his, Silas is approached by a discarnate that tries to intercede on behalf of Adelino, saying, Adelino's helped my family so much, can you please go and help him? And Silas turns to the spirit and says, look, he's about to be almost completely healed. So if you make the connection later in the chapter as it ends, why he's about to be completely healed, because the very reason he has this severe eczema is because of what he did to his father in a previous life, and he's about to receive his father back in his arms. And this is the only chapter that you will find. And if I'm wrong, dear readers, dear watchers, let us know. Email us at the SSB at ssbaltimore.org. But I believe I'm correct when I say that this is the only chapter in this book that Mentor Druso, who is the head honcho of Mansão Paz, leaves Mansão Paz, comes to Adelina Correa's home in the physical realm to come and pray with him. His prayer is beautiful. You actually can find the recorded version in my own voice. And that's not why we're sharing it, but because the prayer is so moving, it's beautiful, because a Mentor Druso, who is so wise and all-knowing, kneels and prays for Jesus, for Adelino, to be encouraged to receive this father into his bosom. It's so moving. It's so moving.
It is an amazing thing, and we see, the listeners, that there is hope.
Yes.
And there is guidance, especially when we are living this selfless life.
Yes.
When we are trying, when we're doing our best, because we cannot say that he's perfect. He's not an individual that he's perfect, especially looking at the past.
Right.
And by all means, we're not saying that perhaps this person has this ailment or this difficult in life, physical, whatnot, that it's because correlated to something in the past. Please don't let us not take this way, but really analyze, why do we have these issues? Why do we are suffering? And sometimes, as you mentioned yourself, Silas told us, look, he's about to receive what he needs. And through the suffering, we can find happiness. Because after this, he's going to pretty much clear all, or some of this, that we don't know. But again, just to remind us that sometimes we think that we need A, B, C, but truly not necessarily, especially the way we are still. The thing is, ask for encouragement, ask for patience, resignation, that we will receive, and really apply this in our daily lives. That we think that people, when we do something good at the Spiritist Center, wherever we are, that people will pay us with money. Not necessarily, just the prayers, as he will receiving the prayers, asking for guidance for this person. It's just an amazing thing. And we all wish that to all of us, or to ourselves. So it is this persistence in this selflessness. And it's something that really interesting, that we had a speaker come to Baltimore recently, and Virginia as well, and we were talking about Chico, and one of the things that he mentioned that he said that Chico he did have no pride. He was this selfless person, and just an example that we can see truly with the difficulties that we all know that he had as well.
Yes.
The vision and some physical issues, but he was there. He's working. Persistent. And how much goodness, i.e. right here in our hands, he brought it to us. So this is an example that we would like to live with and to practice in our lives. And we wish that towards the next chapter that we watch and we get together again, we can learn even more. But again, calling one another to really practice this, selflessness. If anything, here it is. And this is the example that we can take on in our life. And as Christian has mentioned earlier today, we have a beautiful prayer at the end of this chapter that we would like to leave you here with this prayer. It's just the audio version of it, previously recorded, and just take a time to listen to it and really acclimate yourself with this beautiful moment and read the chapter, right? And then finalize with the prayer and listen to the prayer as well. It's a beautiful thing, and we hope that this can bring you some blessings as it brings to all of us, right? Absolutely. Until next time, and we thank you.
Many blessings. God of goodness, Father of infinite love, you have created time as the tireless guardian of our souls, destined for your bosom. Strengthen us for the necessary renewal. You know our crimes and desertions. Grant us the blessing of pain and time to redeem them, and anoint us with the understanding of your laws, so that we do not waste any opportunity to pay our debts. You have lent us the treasures of work and suffering as favors of your mercy, so that we may dedicate ourselves to our dolorous but just regeneration. We are prisoners of guilt, but we are looking for our freedom.
helped by the breath of your love. O Father, infuse us with courage so that our weaknesses may be forgotten. Inflame our spirits with sacred enthusiasm for the good, so that evil does not destroy our good intentions. And lead us along the pathway of self-denial, so that our minds do not stray from you. May we pray like Jesus, the Divine Master, whom you sent to our hearts in order for us to accept your designs entirely. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do not let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. So be it.